This is Firecrackers. You've missed quite a lot, but don't worry. We stream live on our Facebook page. You can always catch up with us on there. So now to the topic we have at hand, that is the performance of ministers. Because if the president is saying that he wants to reshuffle his cabinet, could we probably infer that it's because they are not operating at the level he wishes that they should operate, or maybe it's just one of those things to see if better change, so to speak, could happen?
Well, the buck stops on the president's table, so he's going to take responsibility for whatever happens to his government in terms of performance. And thank God again, all those ministers and co, they are not elected people, they're actually appointed at his whim and caprice, so to say. So he's the one that will determine what to do with them. But I must say here that I sympathize with the president in the sense that it is not all of those people that he's working with that he will have wanted to work with if he had his way, you know. But this is not a state governor who could choose only from his own state or people that he knows very well. This is the president of the country who has to spread his appointments all over the country. And then he will have to rely on recommendations of people on people. Not necessarily because most of them he has not even worked with before. So he will have to basically rely on such recommendations. Now he has given them opportunity to prove themselves. Some have been able to prove themselves, some have not done nothing from the outset. So it is at his prerogative to decide who he wants to keep or who he wants to, give the boots, because he has to perform. He is answerable to the people, while those his ministers are answerable to him. He is a company, so to say. So if you are not performing, he has the authority to fire you.
Definitely. And one would say that working with the federal government is like the best company one could work with ever. In Nigeria, though, it might not be the same in other climes. So now I'm going to be asking Dr. H. If you were to evaluate the president's cabinet, how would you rate them so far?
Well, rating the cabinet of the president is they are Nigerians and they are working in Nigeria. And we know that in the past 1 year, things have not been better off. So, if things have not been better off, we also raise the cabinet as not working. Of course, there might be one or two who may have excelled themselves. But in the average, the cabinets have not done enough because poverty is increasing, inflation is on the rise, unemployment is on the rise, prices of fuel, cost of transportation, everything is on the rise. So the people are suffering. That is just the truth. No matter what they will say, the average Nigerian are suffering. So, if the duty of government is to promote the welfare of the people, we will say the cabinet have failed. Even though one or two, they have performed above average. I'm also afraid when they talk about cabinet reshuffle or replace
okay, it seems the network is not friendly.
The Nigeria problem is a systemic problem.
Now we are still talking about the performance of the ministers. Yes. so far. Okay, so if we are to look at it this way, because you said that it's a company.
Are you still hearing me?
The citizens definitely will point at the president if things do not go well. So if we are to look at it from which area, where does it stand? Where does it end? That we will be holding the cabinet of the president responsible and not keep pointing fingers at the president every time a little thing does not go the way we want it to go in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you again. Like I said earlier, it's like a company that has shareholders. That company, the shareholders have donated their authority to the executive management in the company headed by a CEO. Okay, so for the shareholders, they don't have much to do with the general staff. You know, either you are a manager or wherever. Their own focus is on the board, who has donated again some power to the executive management that is represented by the CEO. So I cannot blame Nigerians for blaming Tinubu for everything, because he is the CEO of the company. Nigerians are shareholders in that company, so he is responsible, he is accountable to them. Okay, how he runs his ship, how he runs his team is his business. But the thing is, you have to deliver. Nigerians have given him deliverables, which in fact he actually gave himself, and they have signed off with him. These are the things you have promised us. Anything short of that is not acceptable to us. Wherever you want to use is your business. Okay, bring him from anywhere, but you must deliver. So I cannot blame Nigerians for holding the president responsible for the performance of the government. That's the way it should be.
Okay, all right. And now to Dr. Eshenake, I hope we would have favorable network now. Okay, so the issue, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned something about the way to change, the way to hold the leaders responsible is through election. So despite the fact that all Nigerians vote to have the president, Nigerians too voted to have their state governors too. And some people have said that when it comes to production, especially for food production, state government should be held accountable because they are the owners of the land, so to speak. But the issue in Nigeria is food gets expensive, the president gets blamed. Increase in prices of goods and commodity, the president too gets blamed for that. So at what point do we start differentiating who we are to blame? Should we be blaming the local government chairman that we vote for too? Should we be blaming the governors? And when should be the right time that we should be pointing fingers at the president and say, okay, now this is your fault now. It is clear, it is glaring that this is actually your fault, not my state governor's fault, not my local government chairman's fault.
Well, thank you. Without missing words, the blame is across the board. The blame is across the board. We have to blame the local government chairman that is close to the grassroots. We have to blame the state government. We also have to blame the federal government that they have failed, or there are aspects of their functions that they didn't perform well. In the 80s, local governments are known to be grading and repairing rural roads. Local governments are known to own bulldozers, to own tractors, and other farm equipment that can help in food production. Today, that is almost zero. The local government today are just institutions for payment of salaries for overstaffed councils. The only duty they perform at the local government council today is payment of salaries. They hardly award contracts, or they hardly do anything. Maybe because the people complain, maybe because of the joint account with the state government and the rest. This current government have said funds for local government will be going to them directly. Well, in as much as that is good, machinery must also be put in place so that these people are accountable, because the process and the method of election does not guarantee them to be accountable to the masses. The state government too, they have been over biased in their developmental strides. They concentrate their development in the urban areas, because that is where visitors and people from other states visit. And when you get there, they say, oh, the government is performing, without taking a look at what is happening in the rural area. As I speak today, there are still some villages that produce food items, but difficult for them to transport such food items to the cities where they are needed because of lack of road. And also, what are the government doing in terms of herders, farmers clashes? From the Delta State where I'm speaking, I know of a kingdom who used to produce granuts, sweet potato, and rice, and very many other food items. But today, people from that community could no longer go to farms because their villages and farms have been taken over by herders. These are issues of security that the federal government must come up with solutions to solve. That issue is a big problem as far as food production is concerned. In those days, Benue State was known as the food basket of the nation. But today, I'm afraid we may not be able to describe Benue State as a food basket because it's like the capital of the herders farmers clash. And the government and the federal seem not to be doing anything about it. So, in conclusion, I'm saying that government at all levels have their own share of the blame. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that. So now I'm going to be asking this question because when we began this discussion, you said you had sympathy for the president because most of the people you even appointed, there are people that he has never worked with before, is based on recommendation. So now, is this the point where we now turn to Nigerians and blame Nigerians themselves for, because it is still people who would recommend these people who recommend based on nepotism, based on probably they have all the person they favor, and now it is just time to pay back these favors. So for this particular point now, do we blame the people, and what advice would you give to the president going forward? Which is that to round up.
Okay, you see, you look at how ministers are selected. The president has his party people all over the place, and even the ones that are not even in his party. He's not, like I said earlier, does not have knowledge of all activities in all the states of the nation. So he will have to depend on people, some of his own people to recommend to him. So when we say blame, we can't blame the ordinary Nigerian because the ordinary Nigerian did not do the recommendation. We are going to be focusing more on those people that did the recommendations. Those politicians, majorly politicians, that will say, this person in this state is good in this area. Okay, president will say, bring him in. You understand? But now that he has given them opportunity, the truth is he still has to maintain federal character. That is constitutionally, backed. So he has now to go back to those people and say, if you must still recommend, be sure of who you are bringing. And again, now, he too, after 1 year, is now familiar with the entire Nigeria, so to say. So he can now say, I've heard of this particular person, I need him. You are still filling your state quota, but this one will deliver better than this other person. So, in terms of pushing blames, it's not to ordinary Nigerians, but to those politicians that did the recommendation on those people that are now there are not able to deliver. So the president itself still has his prerogative to now say, sorry man, this guy that you brought hasn't performed. You either bring me somebody that can perform, I'll use my own whatever to bring in somebody that can deliver for me. So, like I said, the box still stops on his table. It's now for him to know how to now get better hands to take over from those non-performing hands.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that. And we have to say we wish President Bola Tinubu the very best of luck, because Nigeria is not a very easy country to govern, especially in this situation, the economic situation and everything. So sincerely, we wish him the very best of luck. And this is where we'll be drawing the curtains close on today's episode of Firecrackers with